what book do I want to read today? "13 Chairs"? Okay. Let's see what this is about. It's a ghost story. Wait a minute. Okay, now I'm ready to review a spooky ghost story. So I got changed so I could review this book in a spooky fashion, but like I said at the beginning, I really didn't know that this was a horror book until I started it. And there's this really interesting thing that Dave Shelton did. He, in between each story, this isn't just a collection of stories like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. There's an actual story happening in between stories. The main character, Jack, who's just a young kid, goes into this house that someone has told him is haunted, and he meets 12 strangers who are at this table of 13, and if you know Harry Potter, that's not a good sign, but he meets these 12 strangers, and each person, including himself, has a candle in front of them, and every person tells a ghost story, and at the end, every person, once they've told their story, blows out their candle, pulls back their chair into the darkness, and waits while everyone else tells their stories. I see you. I know. And at first that can kind of seem uninteresting, like who are these people? And between each story you only get between 1 to 3 pages of their dialogue, so that might seem uninteresting as you might not get to know the people accurately and enough to feel personal about them. But I did. As you go, you really do feel connected. Obviously to not all 13, but to at least a couple of them. And every story is really interesting. At first, going through the first 2 or 3 stories I didn't really find interesting, and they were not scary, and it didn't seem like they were really trying to be scary, so I thought that this might be a kid's book. But the more you read, the better they get. Like I said, the first 3 for me weren't really that interesting or that scary, but I also felt that they didn't really try to be. Like, they were just what they were. But as I continued, the more interest I felt. My favorites were Beneath the Surface, Razor, and there's another one, let me find. Oh, The Girl in the Red Coat. I like that one too. But there were a few in here out of the 13 that I really enjoyed. And by the end, even if they weren't my favorites, I would have read a full book on most of the stories, if not all of them. And I really appreciate them for what they were. I know, I see you. Again, even if they weren't my favorite, or they didn't scare me, I really enjoyed them, and I would read a whole book dedicated to every story. Dave Shelton, I would read all your books. I think this is your first book and only book, but you should write more. It was really good in the end. Anyway, for matters of the end, because this book is only about 250 pages long, and the end, I don't know how to word this that makes sense. I didn't like the ending, but I was satisfied with it. I don't think if I had the option that I would change it, which is kind of weird because I didn't like it, but how do I do this without spoiling it? Because there was a story in between the stories, I was really craving more of an arc in that story, and maybe that I shouldn't have expected that for such a thing. So I maybe had higher expectations than I needed to, but overall it was really good. I was really surprised. I can't say that enough.
Hello darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Surprised me. I don't think I can recommend this book enough to anybody because, like I said, I thought it was for kids and it really blew my mind. I was expecting a lot, and then as it went on a little bit, I was like, oh no, this isn't going to be that great, and then it just went through the roof. And while I was reading it, no joke, when I was about halfway through, I stopped and made sure I took a note so when I made this video, so I could tell you guys. Even if you think you know how the story will end, keep reading. I swear to you, even if you think you know how it's going to happen, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but keep reading. It gets so much better, and as I said, to be honest, you probably do, but you don't know everything. They will still get you. They will still haunt you. I thought these were just for kids, nothing too scary, deep, or lasting, but I was wrong. They are really good, and as I said before, I mean, in here, I expected the endings to some of these, I'll be honest, but actually not all of them. And I'm just going to say it one more time. Even if you think you know the story, even if you're like, I read horror, I watch horror movies all the time, this book wouldn't be that interesting to me, I would say that you're wrong, because I watch a lot of horror movies too. I read, to show you my horror collection, but I have read a good amount, I've watched a good amount of movies, and this genuinely surprised me. I would recommend it. Please check it out. It's only $10 in America and $13 in Canada, and you know what? For 13 stories that I can tell you you're going to want to keep reading even though they're only 20 pages, it's worth it.